Thanks, Kathy. And welcome to the artist and the director exercise. And thank you to each of the participants for being here. We really appreciate your help. The exercise that we're about to do is not a very complicated exercise. It's actually pretty simple. But what it really underscores is the power of communication. Kathy's been working with the audience talking about various elements of communication, and she'll continue to do that after the video. But I'd like the audience to use this as an illustrative example of some of the principles involved in communication. Okay. Why don't we go ahead and give the directions for the activity. You're going to work in pairs. One of you will be the artist, and one of you will be the director. The artist is going to stand in front of the flip chart with the directors behind them, back to back. Okay, so I'll finish those directions once you're in place. I want to address the audience and say, can I ask you to serve as observers? Take some notes. Think about what they're saying, how they're interacting, how they're communicating. This will be helpful later when we debrief the activity, when we kind of get a sense of how they experienced it. You can kind of have a reference point, and I think that'll be really helpful. So if you don't mind being the artist, and perhaps you could be the director, I'm going to read you some directions and give you a little bit of a cue card here. Okay, so that's yours. Don't open it yet. And let's go ahead and give you the specific directions. All right, to the director. You are holding a picture of a diagram. You are to communicate to the artist how to draw what is on the card. You, the artist, cannot turn around, and neither can you, the director, turn around to see what she's drawing. You'll have 5 minutes, and I want to ask, do you have any questions? No. All righty.
Okay, so you're going to go all the way to the left side of the page and draw a line straight down. And then where that line ends, take it all the way across the bottom of the page, and then go up the right side of the page, and then another line down on an angle towards the end of the page, and then another line up so that they're all connected.
Draw a horizontal rectangle, and then divide it into quarters.
Is the first quarter on the left or the right?
Oh, it's on the left.
Okay.
And then in the center of that, draw a diamond. Now, I need you to color the diamond in.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
Now you're going to draw a circle completely around the triangle, touching all 3 points. Done? Okay. To the left of the circle, you're going to draw a smaller diamond. That's only 1 point is touching the left side of the circle. Now completely around the diamond and the circle, you're going to draw a square or kind of like a rectangle that encompasses the diamond and the circle inside the square.
All right. What do you think? Fun? It was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had artists and directors, right? Mm-hmm. You now can add that to your resume. You can actually add artists and directors. Okay. Actually, there was a point to this. There's a really important point. And really what the point behind this activity is really to hone your listening skills, hone your, not your skills, but rather be observant of how you listen, the patterns of your listening, how well you communicate. Part of it is listening. So for the observers, did you notice the artist asking questions? Did you notice points of clarification? Did the director jump right into a step-by-step process, or did they zoom back and try to give a larger, bigger picture idea? There are other things that happen, but I'm going to let the audience or the participants here share that with us. So we're going to go group by group. Okay, so let's take a look at how the first group did. Okay, so there we go. What do you think? How was it? Give us a little feedback.
I found it a little challenging to try and look at something and then describe how it should be drawn to make it easy for the person drawing it to understand. So that was a little challenging.
Okay.
And I thought I was doing well until we got to the point where you said, well, just draw the line down from the middle of the top and then go down and connect, and okay. That's as best as I could do.
So when you were, going back and forth, did you guys ask questions? Were there a little communication?
I didn't know if we could, so I didn't ask any questions, and I just went with it.
Okay, good, good. Alrighty, so we have another group. Aha, all right, let's see here. How'd we do? Pretty good.
As soon as I gave the second direction, I realized that there would be a question as to how big the rectangle should be. And I should have started with the triangle.
Interesting. So you're actually picking up on you could have communicated in a different order.
Yes, and I realized that it would be my fault, probably.
Well, no fault, no fault attributed. But I mean, that's important, right? So the order in which we communicate actually plays a role in the listener's understanding. Is it sequential? In some cases it's not, but very often miscommunication can occur when something is said maybe out of order. So that's something to just note, I think, as a communication point. What'd you think?
Well, I felt pretty good about it, and I was asking a lot of questions just to kind of clarify things, but I think if I asked the question about what the size of the rectangle is, that we would have been closer to the answer. I'd also like to address this idea of order. And I'm not sure the order really matters as long as there's communication, because we did it from the outside in, and if we had the rectangle the right size, we would have been really close. Now the next group that we'll see later did it from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
But it also has its problems if you're not being accurate in describing what the picture looks like.
So what I think, hearing is it really doesn't matter if you go from inside out or outside in. It's more maybe the accuracy with which you're describing or defining the shapes. One approach that might have helped would be, well, how big a rectangle, right? If you're kind of going back and forth. All right, we've got the third and final masterpiece. It should be revealed momentarily, and here it is. Ta-da! What do you think? How's that look? Pretty good, right? So what'd you think? How was it?
Well, I realized that I jumped right into describing, the first shape that I wanted her to draw. I didn't say, we're going to draw a number of shapes. And we'll start with this one and then continue on. I just kind of jumped right in and had her draw the triangle. So I don't know how that affected the way she drew.
Interesting, very interesting. How about you? How did you react to it?
I think what she mentioned about doing an overview of it before starting with the individual shapes would have been helpful with placement on the paper. I kind of started all the way over onto the right instead of being in the center. And the other thing that I noticed was I didn't finish listening to her instructions with the diamond, so it ended up not touching the circle, so I had to kind of make my circle bigger. And had I listened to her go through the diamond completely, she ended by saying, and it should be touching the circle, then that would have been much better.
Wow, I'm going to give you that $10 later. That is perfect. Did you get that? What happened is you've given a great point. Order of not only just the order we talked about here, but jumping the gun. So you're kind of admitting you kind of jumped the gun a little bit. And also, I think the first comment reveals the fact that when you can reflect on what you've done, you can improve upon the communication. So maybe that's a lesson to learn, that practice and thinking through the order is really important. But also, how do I want to describe something or lay it out? It's sort of like, nuance. You don't know for sure, but you have to learn by experience. So this, I think, is great. And it points specifically to the point I wanted to make, and that's why I'm going to give you the $10 later. Feedback. You two did not communicate. I guess it was a one-sided communication. So there was no feedback. We had some feedback, and we had some feedback, but not as much as would have been helpful if you had said, should I be placing this rectangle here, there? Though I didn't say you could ask questions, you couldn't ask questions, because I wanted to see how you authentically or naturally would approach this. I think, truthfully, this exercise could be somewhat humbling. I think so because when I did it, I think of myself as a relatively good communicator. Not so true if you used my drawing with my director and me as the director and that. So my point is, what we think we're doing when we're communicating may not always be how we are communicating. So that speaks to the point of feedback, as I said earlier, but also checking for understanding. If I'm speaking to you or to the audience, I have to check to make sure you understand what I'm saying, and you as a listener should be checking on what? Whether or not you're hearing me the right way that I'm meaning to be heard. It's a two-way street. And the moment first of all, we've all heard that a million times. Communication is a two-way street. But we don't always employ it. And when we don't, that brings us to miscommunication. And that's what we're trying to avoid, especially when you think about it in a professional setting, but also in a personal setting. No one wants miscommunication. So, at this point, I'll be back later with our presenters, our participants rather, for another activity. Until then, it's back to you, Kathy.